Imagine transforming Kentucky's culinary landscape while championing local food culture and sustainability. That's precisely what Chef Ouita Michel does. Well, right from 2001, the Holly Hill Inn to uniting her culinary ventures in a company, Chef Ouita's journey is a true testament to dedication and passion. And we are indeed happy to welcome her to the kingdom and happier to sit down for a conversation with her. Chef, thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for talking to Bahrain this week.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Is it the first time in Bahrain?
Yes, my first time in the Middle East.
Oh, wow. That's nice. So this is a perfect start.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it?
It's
Bahrain
beautiful.
is beautiful. How do you like the country so far?
I absolutely love it. I couldn't have been made more welcome here. I love the people. Everyone that I've met is extremely friendly and it's beautiful. And the food is delicious.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you, did you have anything in mind when you were coming down to Bahrain? Did you want to explore something specific or some...
I didn't. I'm here teaching students,
But the Bahraini,
but
did you try something?
I have had I want to have as much Bahraini cuisine as I possibly can and figure out what is it that makes the Bahraini food culture so specific. And so I've had the lamb tikka
Okay.
with the black lemon and the lemon. And I love that very, very much. And the majbouz, is that right?
Majbouz, yes. Okay.
So I've had two kinds, one with chicken, one plain. And then today I hope to have one with lamb as well.
Okay.
So I feel this is maybe one of the national dishes of Bahrain.
Okay.
And I also toured the Central Market District, which was amazing. The variety of fruits and vegetables, just astounding. I have nothing like this.
You visited the market as such?
Yes.
Okay.
I visited the market with an amazing young chef, Chef Yusuf, and he told me a lot about his own approach to Bahraini cuisine and what he learned from his mom and his grandmother and how this is going to translate into his restaurant. And it was wonderful.
Yes, that's exactly what I learned as well over my more than 2 decades of stay here. It's mothers and grandmothers' recipes.
Yes.
That's right, and I think that takes a long way, isn't it? Being a chef, you could say that.
Oh, I can definitely say that. I think that's true in my family. And one reason I became a chef, my mother was a wonderful cook, and of course my grandmother. And I think in today's generations, I want to protect those food cultures and pass them on to young people. And sometimes they're getting that information outside the home, not necessarily in the home. It just depends on the kind of family that you're from. But I worry sometimes that young people, and this is in the United States, I worry that they're getting all of their food from restaurants and not enough of their food from like the home kitchen and learning those techniques. So yes, many of my recipes come from my mother.
That's a very interesting point. I think the world is changing when it comes to people prefer to eat outside more. And how do you look at that, and how much more restaurateurs or people like you, professional chefs, would take up that responsibility of being responsible to the society?
Well, I think restaurants are for special occasions. It worries me too that we see restaurants for daily eating. I don't think it's good nutritionally, and it's definitely not good for the environment because of the amount of waste and trash that we generate, especially in fast casual, we call it, or fast food restaurants. The amount of paper and plastic that's generated in that kind of a meal can be over time is going to have a very, impactful environmental impact. And so it's important that it's also really important for our well-being that we eat together at home. I don't want to judge people because everyone has a different lifestyle, and I own 8 restaurants and I do want people to eat in restaurants. But
I like your honesty.
Yes. But we also need to make sure that we're getting enough vegetables, we're getting enough fruit, and you don't find those kinds of ingredients on a lot of restaurant menus. So it's important that we eat at home for our nutrition, and it's important that we eat at home for our connection. Connection.
That's what I wanted to, because that brings a family around the table, isn't it?
It brings a family around a table. And even if it's not 3 meals a day, or even if it's not every day, at least a few times a week, I think it's really important for how we express our care and concern for one another.
And I think we all share that culture, be it me from India or you from the US or the Bahrain. We gather around a table. And I think Bahrainis have a wonderful tradition that they make it to their family homes every weekend. wherever they are.
I heard that from a
Especially
friend.
the grandmothers.
A friend told me that, yes.
Isn't it?
That they, on Sunday, not Sunday, on Saturday,
Friday or Saturday, Thursday night,
make it to their home table. And I think that's an amazing tradition. We do that in the U.S. on Sunday afternoon. And in my family, we do that frequently, at least every other week or once a month. We are all at my father's home and we are all together, all of my nieces and nephews. And it's really important for how we sustain one another. I think we learned this during the COVID pandemic. You know, we lost that tie that binds. We had it taken away from us for a time. So now let's celebrate that by eating together, preparing food for one another. I am a professional chef and I work in my restaurants every day, but I cook at home every day.
Interesting. That's a big take back. Like, people should listen to that.
I love cooking, but I do love especially cooking for the people that I love.
Yeah, I've heard this from many who loves cooking. It's good to cook and feed those who love to eat.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that takes me to the question. We spoke about connection, and of course, food connects people.
Yes.
And that's where I think you can speak about your role of bridging two countries, two nations with their own rich history and culinary stories. How do you look at this bridging, or how do you look at yourself as an ambassador connecting to these nations, Bahrain and the US?
Well, I'm teaching, I get the privilege of teaching young people in Bahrain about my food culture and leading them through recipes from Kentucky, but from the southern part of the United States. And I knew right from the outset that I wanted to find dishes that connected us, where they would say, this dish could be a Bahraini. So we made okra and tomatoes. That's a very, very traditional southern dish of slow cooked okra and tomatoes. But the students loved it. Now, students in the United States would not love that dish, but students here, they love that dish. And we also made a red rice dish. This is from Charleston, South Carolina. Sometimes we call it Charleston red rice. And again, very close to michbous. I'm afraid I'm not pronouncing it.
Michbous.
Michbous.
Maybe I'm not also not pronouncing it.
So we made that last night and they really loved it. And then we've made some fried chicken because I wanted them to know, like, fried chicken did not start in a fast food restaurant. Fried chicken started on the farm, with chickens. Okay. So we actually, did everything from start to finish on making a true Kentucky fried chicken, and talked a lot about cornmeal because, we have spoon bread and hoe cakes and hush puppies and those kinds of things. So I feel like they really see the links. One of my favorite recipes that we've made together so far is called a sorghum cookie. Mm-hmm. We have a molasses in Kentucky that's made from sorghum, which is a grass. But here we use the date molasses because it's date season, and they turned out so delicious. I mean, I have no date molasses in Kentucky, but I will never forget the date molasses cookie that we made here in Bahrain with the students.
Interesting.
It was wonderful.
Interesting. That's a local taste.
It's a local taste. And the idea is for me to learn from them and them to learn from me. Because really, I think we have an opportunity as chefs to find what we have in common instead of always what divides us. Mm-hmm. In the United States, we have a culinary corps. That's the jacket that I'm wearing. So there are 80 chefs across the United States that the State Department work with the State Department to go all around the world and share America's cuisine. And of course, in the United States, we have many cuisines, because we're from all over the world in the United States. So, it's really an honor and a privilege to be able to open up my food culture and my heart, hopefully, to share that with the students of Bahrain.
Interesting. And reading your bio, I found that you've been a national debate champion.
Oh,
and
yes.
Now here you are, a celebrity chef. Could you summarize this journey for us? Like from there to here, what brought you all the way to be a chef?
Well, yes, when I was a younger woman, I was very competitive. Yes. I was only the second woman to win the national debate tournament. And I thought I would be a lawyer. I expected to be a lawyer. I think my parents expected me to be a lawyer, but I fell in love with cooking. And, at first I was just going to explore cooking and restaurants. And I had no real intention of becoming a chef, just wanted to explore that area a little bit more after college. But I fell in love really with the people that I was able to work with in the kitchens, because I moved to New York City and I got a job And I felt like I was working next to a gentleman from Colombia, a lady from Brazil, one from Argentina. And so my little world in Kentucky all of a sudden exploded. Mm-hmm. And I love what I do. I've never looked back. I went to culinary school and I met my husband, Chris, on the first day of school. And it's been a wonderful career for me. I love the idea of working both with my hands and with my brain and with my heart. And I feel like food really gives you that opportunity to work with all aspects of yourself. It's very creative. It is hard work, but I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. There's
I
a
like
passion.
the feeling.
Yeah,
it's passion.
These are fields which really needs a passion, and I can see that you have it in you.
We were chefs that went into the food business, but we weren't business people that went into the restaurant business. Yeah. And I think the two are a little different. Mm-hmm. But yes, I have a passion for nutritious food, food made from scratch, food made with local ingredients whenever possible. I want to support our agricultural community, and I want to create as sustainable business as possible, economically sustainable, but environmentally sustainable as well. And if I can show any of that to these students, there are a couple of students that are wanting to start their own businesses who are in baking, et cetera, then I hope that I can. And I hope I can be a mentor for them once I go home as well.
Interesting. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you, because you're truly inspirational when it comes to sustainable cooking initiatives, especially your engagement with food chain has been inspiring. So the younger generation, I'm sure they are aware these days and they are slowly moving towards the goal of living sustainable life, especially food. You just spoke about the amount of waste generated when we eat out. How do you find the Bahraini youth receiving this message, and what would be your message to them?
I think the youth that I'm working with at Youth City are amazing. I think they're really, really smart, brilliant, because all of my recipes are in English. They're in traditional measurements, no metric system, and they're all in a Fahrenheit temperature. So they have to convert everything, all the language, all the math. And they're super interested in where I come from. And for some of them, it's the first time they're cooking, so they don't have a lot of experience cooking. For some of them, they've experienced a lot and they're looking at business. And I think those students are really interested in the sustainability aspect of it. We all have to play a role in that, because we can't go on forever just generating tons and tons of trash and consuming. We have to think about what we can produce, what we can leave for the next generation. But they're very young, their world is their oyster right now. They have their lives in front of them. I'm a little older at this point.
Yeah, interesting. And let's talk about your book. Just a few miles south, isn't it?
Yes.
And that is where you talk about that balance of tradition and innovation. How easy is that, Chef?
Well, it's very important for me to always, there are so many dishes in Kentucky that as we economically develop it, as we progress into the 21st century, we're losing some of that food culture. And so part of my role as a chef, at least in my home state, is to protect those traditional dishes. And I hope that's one thing that I can give the students is these dishes from your mother, from your grandmother, from your aunt, they will become so important to you when you have children. Yes. And even though it's from hand to hand, it's from person to person and generation to generation. Once you put everybody together collectively, it's part of your culture. It's part of how you protect your Bahraini culture, just the way it is that how I protect the culture of Kentucky, the culture of Appalachia. It's true here too. And if you have no food culture left, if it all becomes McDonald's and Dairy Queen and Hardee's hamburgers, then you have lost destroyed a part of your culture forever. And that's a tragedy. So it's so nice to meet chefs like Chef Yusuf, who's bringing all of his Bahraini tradition from his family into his restaurant. And that's really what I try to do. That's what my book is about. So you'll see all the stories of the different recipes, the locations, the place where they're from. I feel in Bahrain, it's very similar to Kentucky. In Kentucky, place is very important to us. The landscape, where we are. And that's very true here. Bahrain isn't, it is its own country. It's a specific place. And so how do you define that culturally? And then protecting those things as you develop is really important. That's the center of who you are.
Very true. I learned that you live in a 200-year-old cabin with your family.
Yes.
What is the emotion behind it? Is it going closer to the nature?
It is, I never thought I would live in a cabin. It does seem really hilarious that I'm from Kentucky and I live in a cabin. So where our original restaurant is called the Holly Hill Inn, and it's we've owned it, my husband and I, for 23 years, but the home itself is over 150 years old. So we own an acre of land in it, and next to it, we were able to buy this cabin that was moved there, but it was from 1820. So it's 200 years old. Yeah. And the logs are this thick and they run the length of the room that we're in. It's quite beautiful. And it's very cool because it keeps the house very cool in the summer. It keeps it very warm in the winter and very, very quiet. So I really like it, but sometimes it can get a little dark. So, I mean, that's the only thing. The windows are small. I don't know. Maybe I guess it makes me a true Kentuckian.
You have a daughter, right?
I have a daughter who's 20.
How does she like that concept of living in a cabin?
Well, she has loved it. Now she lives in New York City. Okay. She's a student at Columbia University. So she'll be a junior in college this year. But I hope that I gave her a foundation, you know, and a home is always your home. Your home is always your home. And we want always her friends to feel as our home is their home as well. So.
Right. Okay. I'm sure Youth City was quite an impressive project, as you must have witnessed.
Amazing.
How did you find the young Bahraini chefs, aspiring chefs, you know? How did you find their attitude or the passion in them? Could you gauge it?
Oh, well, we had 3 of our students meet us at the market and go through the whole market with us. And one of whom is bringing his own recipe for his cake tonight to our class so that I can try it. Every one of them is just, yes, they're filled with passion. They're filled with enthusiasm.
Is it a mix, men, women?
Yes, it's mixed with men and women. And so far they're getting along great. They're cooking together. And we have 2 maybe married couples. And it's wonderful to see them. They're very young. They're cooking together. They're enjoying the recipes together. And I can tell that this is part of their daily lives, that they're working this together. But yes, super, super enthusiastic. Youth City, the thing that struck me is, to have this age group, which the age group that I'm working with is 15, I think, to 25, maybe. So I know in the mornings there's much younger children, but this age group, there's not a lot. And this is true in the United States anyway. It's hard for them to find a lot of activity to do together. So to have all of it together, for them to be able to take classes in fabrics, science and technology, all the different sports, media, everything. It's really inspiring. And the young people love it. They love being together. The thing that's hard for me is keeping them active because I bring 10 recipes. We have made over 20 Southern dishes in 3 days. So I give them the recipe. I think it's going to take us 2, maybe 3 hours to do. No, it's done. And I'm like, wait, let's go slow. Okay. Let's read the recipe through. They're so, yes, they're very wonderful to have met them. It's a privilege for me, really.
Great. It's an honor for us as well. 35 years of experience in this field. And that is something rich and vast, you know. And you have this vision of the future generation of chefs. How do you look at, or how do you plan to bring this vision into reality, the future generation of chefs, especially the sustainability agenda on plate?
I think restaurants really have to change as we move into the future, for environmental sustainability, but also for a life sustainability, to be able to have a family, to have children, whether you're a father or a mother in the restaurant industry. And so in the past, sometimes restaurants have been very domineering places where you have to give the restaurant, 15 hours a day, 16 hours a day. And that leaves very little time for a family. I did tell this to Chef Yusuf. I hope he's watching. He has a 3-year-old daughter. And I said, you're coming to this market every morning at 4:30 in the morning. And then you're going to the restaurant till 8:30 at night. When does your daughter get to see you? So it's very important. Hopefully, I think that I can play the role of mentor and advisor for young chefs in how to have a life in this business, a life of service, a life of hospitality, but also creating boundaries so you can have a life at home. And that is really important to your family's development and to your own personal sense of happiness. And the environmental issues, the way that we handle our waste, where we source our ingredients, the amount of energy that we use, all of those are going to become increasingly important. And whether we're going to employ people or use robots to make food, all of this is going to be part of how chefs in the future navigate their businesses. It'll be fascinating to see.
Great. Interesting. Thank you very much for taking your time to speak to us. Can I have your final remarks to the young chefs out there, not just Bahrainis, but globally? What would be your advice to them?
I think that after 35 years, the only thing that I can say is that I persisted through every obstacle, and don't let things stop you from achieving your dreams. Instead, build a plan and pursue the plan.
Thank you very much. We must thank the U.S. Embassy for getting you to Bahrain and giving a slice of your taste to the Bahraini culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Chef Ouita Michel with us on Bahrain This Week.